better business, and a better life begin here. Welcome to Business is Art on TrueChat with author and business consultant, Jon Umstead.
Thank you for tuning in to Business is Art. Today we're going to be using the December 2018 blog post at the Plan Canvas website as sort of the backdrop for this podcast. So we're going to walk through it and maybe expand on it a little bit. And so while we do that, Justin T. Weller is sitting in as the guest and producer of the show. Welcome back, Justin.
Always good to be back.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Actually, you've been here quite a bit lately, either as the guest or jumping in when we have other guests. So appreciate you contributing to the conversations.
Going to become a regular fixture, it sounds like. So.
Going to have to start paying you or something, I guess. Your salary shall be the same as mine.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, so folks, if you aren't familiar with my website, it is plancanvas.net, and you can go out to it and find the December blog post. And just kind of while we're on the topic of blogging, I used to do a weekly, pretty much weekly, blog post at plancanvas.net and predecessor websites. And I kind of got away from that over the last 4 months and have shifted to first I tried about twice a month, and now I'm on this once a month blogging schedule and just trying it out. You know, life is an experiment. Business is an experiment. You don't stick to the script. Try things, see what works best for you. And that's what we're doing here, with the Plan Canvas blog, is just, trying a monthly schedule and see how it does.
Well, it's something that I've been through with the State of Us, the program that I host that you were on recently. We've done everything from once a week to 3 times a week to every day to half-hour episodes to 2-hour episodes. So we've been all over the place with what form works the best, and constantly testing and trying to figure out what makes the most sense.
Yeah. And that's not what this podcast was originally about, and nor what it will be about. But just while we're on the topic, when I began blogging, about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I guess 4 years ago, probably when I began blogging, I was reading a lot of material, never blogged for external sites. I'd done some for internal corporate sites, but never externally before. So I was trying to learn a little bit about the tricks of the trade. And, one of the early bits of advice that I came across was just make sure you have a regular, predictable schedule, and pretty much do what we're talking about. Experiment a little bit, find what that means for your audience, because it's different for different audiences. And, it wasn't that, in my case, I was finding that weekly blogs were too much or unacceptable. It was that I just didn't know. I hadn't tried monthly, and I wanted to see, because what I don't want to do is inundate readers with stuff on too frequent a basis. Where we are surrounded by stimulus and input, and it's flying at us all the time. And the last thing I want to be is someone who over contributes to that. And so give them something of value when they want it, and see how it does.
Well, because it can almost have the opposite effect of what people want. It's just like the whole notion of tagging. You'll hear social media strategists go back and forth on, how many tags should you have in any given post, how many keywords. Well, there's 2 lines of thought there. There's one that's, if you show up in the wrong places, because you've put keywords or tags in that cause you to show up in so many places, if people see you and they don't find you relevant, then they might ignore you in the future when you are relevant.
Right.
And I think the same kind of thing applies here with, there is such a thing as contributing too much,
right?
More than people want or have time for. So instead, they block you or unfriend you or what have you. They stop following you. and then they don't get anything that
Right.
you have to offer, which obviously is bad. So
Yeah.
sometimes less is more. And this can be one of those times, especially it depends, I think, a lot on the topic as well.
Yep. Yeah, and it's funny you even use that phrase "less is more" because that actually is kind of the crux of Plan Canvas. You know, it's and I'm sorry to repeat for our regular listeners, but for anyone new, you know, Plan Canvas is all about expressing what success means to you in your terms, defining your vision, mission, purpose, and defining your goals and objectives and laying out plans for getting there, but not just putting plans together, but actually executing to those plans and making modifications as you move along so that you get ultimately greater results. And that's what it's really all about. But at the core of that is my firm commitment to less is more. I don't believe in the big, lengthy, flowing multi-volume plans that we see so often out in the business world, because I don't believe they're actionable. They might feed egos, but they really don't add a lot of value. And so that's what I've really vehemently tried to steer away from, both in my consulting and in Plan Canvas. Less is more. Just get to the point.
Yep. And same rule applies in when we're doing content delivery, whether it's a podcast, blog post, etc. You give people too much and they can't, they're not gonna remember it. So it's
Right.
not even if they want to. Some people, I'm sure, listen to this and they really want to remember everything or take in everything, but there's only so much that's reasonable for a person to walk away from an experience holding on to. Doesn't mean it didn't impact them in some way, but to be able to actually use. So you don't
Right.
want to, again, it wastes your time, it wastes theirs if you give them more than they can digest at once.
Yep. So, hey, we've spent the first few minutes really just talking about blogging and content in general and schedule of it and all of that. We haven't really gotten into the true content of this episode of Business is Art. So before we really dive in, let's Justin invite our listeners to join the discussion so they can go out and find TrueChat on social media at TrueChat.org. That's TrueChat.org. They can reach out to me directly, either through the website that we're talking about or on Twitter at Jon Umstead. I can also be found on LinkedIn, pretty active out there. Justin, where can folks find you?
At Justin T. Weller on Twitter, and it's the same for LinkedIn. So happy to connect and have new conversations with new people.
Yeah. I mean, that's what really adds value to all of this, is to get people talking. Let's have some discussions. Let's talk about some things. Let's talk about things they've heard that they liked, didn't like, why they didn't like it, why they liked it, what they'd like to hear in the future, etc. But let's get some discussion started. All right, so let's get this one started. So this blog post is entitled "How to Stay True and Be of Value," and it was inspired by an article that I read at Inc. on the online magazine, now Inc. magazine, formerly known as Inc. magazine, just Inc. now, INC period. And the article was entitled "How to Stand Out with Your Holiday Messaging." And the whole reason I was out there snooping around at Inc. is it's one of the half dozen or so websites I frequently go to, Business Insider, Entrepreneur, WSJ, etc. So there's a handful of online publications that I go to on a regular basis, just to kind of keep up on what's happening in the business world, either the small or large business world. So this happens to be one of them. The reason I was out there was because, speaking of that monthly blog post schedule, even before we were doing just monthlies, we were looking at themes for a month. What theme are we going to kind of follow in the blog posts this month? And sometimes that translated over into some of the Business is Art podcasts as well. And so really what I was doing was looking for something that would set our theme for the month. And this article kind of bubbled up to the top. At Inc., it's entitled "How to Stand Out with Your Holiday Messaging," as I mentioned previously. And really the crux of this article is that it suggests three major things that businesses do or keep in mind during the holiday seasonings, holiday seasonings, it would be like poultry seasonings and things like. But so during the holiday seasons, things to keep in mind with their messages, and those things are: 1, express gratitude; 2, stay loyal to the brand; and 3, be of value. So that's what we ran with in this particular blog post, and that's going to be the backdrop for the remainder of this podcast.
Sounds like a plan. We see a lot this time of year. I was actually just watching one earlier today, one of Microsoft's holiday ads. So yeah, I'm excited to get some takes on.
Yeah, well, there might be a little tidbit of surprise in here for you, but the first piece of advice from that Inc. article that we discussed in the blog post at Plan Canvas is express gratitude. And, for Plan Canvas, this was really a big year. Not a big year in terms of revenue, but a big year in terms of getting to the product in its iteration that we're pretty proud of. There's this old adage that it's not so old. I think actually the founder of LinkedIn kind of came up with this, but basically he said that if you aren't embarrassed by the first release of your product, you released too late. Right?
Yes.
And that's certainly been the case in our journey with Plan Canvas. We launched a little over a year ago. Technically speaking, it was available. We didn't really market it a whole lot. And then even though it wasn't a whole lot, we actually kind of put the brakes on things because fairly early on into our launch, we realized, hey, there's some things we really need to do like right now. And so we did, and we basically stripped the user interface of Plan Canvas out and replaced it and made it much more logical and flowing, and more just aesthetically pleasing. So, that was a big thing, but we landed on a software that, maybe a year from now we'll be pretty embarrassed about. But, looking back a year from today, it's just leaps and bounds better than it was when it was initially released. So that was a big thing. But we also really kind of refined what it is that we're about, who our target audience is, how we're going to go about reaching out to them, because that really has only just begun. And it was just a big pivotal year in terms of getting ourselves grounded to where we are getting some traction and can see some light at the end of the tunnel.
I can relate to that very closely because I guess according to the founder of LinkedIn, we launched TrueChat properly then, because it's definitely in a place today where you look back at where you started and where you are, and particularly this year, I've tried to spend a lot of time. We're in, and nobody of course can see it, but we're in a newly renovated studio, and it took about a year to get done. But I can come in now and forget about the work and time that went into getting to where we are and remembering where we came from. Mm-hmm. And I'm just talking about the studio because it's an easy physical example, but this setup looked quite different over a year ago. And in many ways would be something that today I would now be embarrassed to, bring clients to. But now, of course, in its new iteration, not so much. So
right.
It's one of those things too, where like we talked about, either a week or two ago when we were doing that 3-part series, that at some point you can't just keep stressing over whether or not you've got it perfect. You have to get out there because that's how you're going to learn the most.
Right.
And evidently it was a learning experience for you and for us. I mean, we ran into that with a client we tried to bring on and ended up leaving in part because our presentation wasn't what it needed to be.
Yeah.
So it was that was one of those learning experiences of people are going to expect in the line of work that we're in a certain kind of presentation, a package per se.
Yep. Well, it is kind of interesting because we're both getting to watch each other's businesses kind of go through that startup phase and get to a point where, okay, gosh, wish we were here when we launched, but we've learned a lot in the last couple of years and continue to look forward and refine the business. So it's pretty cool, actually. But I guess we have our own little incubator here, sort of, right?
Yeah, we do. Hey, that's the next business, right?
That's
you
right.
get these two going, and then we'll start an incubator.
Yeah, that's right.
Prerequisite is that you'll use Plan Canvas to plan your business, and you'll have to do a podcast. So.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And maybe some video production.
That's right. Yeah, just a little bit of everything.
All right. So, well, back to this expressing gratitude. I list some people on in the blog specifically. There's a whole lot of people that we've met with, worked with over the year, but I specifically named a few in the website. And to most people that would read this, the names aren't going to mean anything to them, and that there's nothing wrong with that. But I do want to go ahead and give these folks a shout out, because in the blog I didn't say why I was recognizing them. And so what I'd like to do here in this podcast is just give a real quick blurb as to why they, in my mind, deserve some special recognition. So if that's all right with you, Justin, that's what I'll do.
Sounds good. I mean, a lot of these people were guests, weren't they?
A lot of them were guests, actually. Yeah, some of them.
Hey, I'm on there too.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Yep. So let's start. I'm just going to go down the list. These are in no particular order of importance, but in the list there are Scott Burgess and Chris Brennan of Jonas Fitness. Now, Jonas Fitness is a software firm. They provide operations management software to the fitness club industry, and they're the country's leader in that type of software. So they're a pretty decent sized company. In fact, they are the largest current user of Plan Canvas, and they have really put the software to the test. And just a real quick story about them. They began using Plan Canvas, had their entire leadership team access the software and begin populating it with just their own thoughts, whatever their random thoughts were about where they wanted to take Jonas into the future. Everybody just contributed and threw some things in there. Then they used the software as a facilitation tool for a 3-day planning session. So they went through everyone's input. They landed on what they ultimately put together as their plans. And in so doing, they really put it to the test, more so than anyone or any group of bodies had to that point, including they tried using it for some things that we didn't really intend it to be used for. So that was kind of fun. Now they're in the execution phase and really putting it to the test, executing to the plans that they put together. So that was very special for us because they are, like I said, a pretty decent sized company. So pretty cool stuff there. I also mentioned a gentleman named Brad Downen at a company called Gartner. Gartner is a big IT research firm, and I've partnered up with them, and Brad is my account rep, and he has given me access or taking me to many, many industry analysts who can give some deep probing input and suggestions into not just Plan Canvas, the software, but the direction, marketing, messaging, all of that sort of thing. So much appreciation there. I also named Jake Cohen of the Ohio State University Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And Jake is also was in the lead for that organization's Best of Student Startup competition, which made Plan Canvas available to any student teams that were competing. So that was a big moment in our journey. Similarly, a gentleman named Vincent Lewis of the University of Dayton at UD's L. William Crotty Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership did the same thing for Dayton's entrepreneurial business, they called it Flyer Pitch competition. So those were pretty cool moments. Please feel free to interrupt anywhere in here, Justin. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep rattling through why these folks were really helpful to us this year.
Sounds good. I'll let you keep going. I'm enjoying listening, and I'm also exploring some more of the Plan Canvas website that I haven't seen recently. So
okay,
I already have a few questions lined up for you.
Good deal. All right. Well, the next section would be a really good place for it. So let me rattle the rest of these off real quick. Dr. Jennifer Ware and Dr. Ashley Hall of Wright State University. They are professors there, but they also are the co-directors of the New Media Incubator. They had me come in and do a little talk presentation to a number of students about about using creativity in the workplace. That was a lot of fun. And I learned from anytime I do something like that, I learned from the audience as well. So that was great. And totally outside of Wright State, we are working on a little project of our own around entrepreneurial leadership. And hopefully, sometime next year, there'll be a lot more to come on that. Franklin University and Urbana University, big thanks to them because they allowed me to do some adjunct teaching. And that has been, again, another tremendous learning experience for me. And it's been a lot of fun working with junior and senior level college kids on some business related classes. And I look forward to continuing that. But also Franklin University selected a paper that I submitted that was basically your entry into a showcase. If they accepted your paper, then you were invited to participate in a scholars showcase, and mine was selected, so I was one of many, and that was a lot of fun and a learning experience as well. Julie and Lance White, who you know, Justin, of FRW Studios, both have been on the show separately prior to them forming FRW Studios, and then together once they had. And FRW is also the purveyor of the Plan Canvas website. So they built it, they manage it. And so if you like it or love it or hate it, you can talk to Julie and Lance. So that's been a big help. A gentleman named Bob Sager, who has been a guest on the show, Spearpoint Solutions is the name of his company. He's a tremendous networker. I invite you listeners to seek out Bob on LinkedIn. He is extremely active on LinkedIn. Bob Sager, he's extremely well networked, and that's what he really enjoys doing is connecting people. So look him up, Bob Sager, S-A-G-E-R, not Bob Seger in the Silver Bullet Band, Bob Sager of Spearpoint Solutions. All right. Next on the list is Justin Weller of TrueChat. Huh. Well, that's kind of weird.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah. But now the opportunity to do this podcast is great. Again, another great learning experience. It is a great networking tool for me as well. And it's just a fantastic opportunity to try to put something out there that people can use and maybe learn from and do a little bit better in their own business and life. So that's our hope.
You know, I was talking to Kimberly, who was on, what was that, just last week, and really enjoyed the conversation with her today. But I just thought it was just coming to mind as her and I were talking, and she even mentioned, you know, how podcasts are becoming this kind of, people doing them are on the cutting edge. You know, there's not a lot of people doing them, but there's enough people doing it that it has become a mainstream thing in terms of consumption. But also just, there were two things. One was kind of that observation about podcasts, and the other one was what a neat networking opportunity created by the show Business is Art for people who aren't the host of the show. You know, obviously Jon has it as his own tool, but what it's been able to do for myself and hopefully for others is valuable as well.
Yeah. Yep. I hope so. All right, two more to list. Mark Sherry of Tamarind Hill Entrepreneurial Growth Capital in Columbus, Ohio. I've not had him on the show yet, but I hope to entice him to be on the show sometime. Mark has been someone that's been in my network for a number of years. I look up to him as a mentor. Get together with him once or so a year, it seems like, and share a glass of wine. And just talk about things, and finally had the opportunity to do a demo of Plan Canvas for him about a week and a half ago. I'd been wanting to do it for a long time, and it just hadn't worked out. We finally got the time to sit down and show it to him and just talk about things. And he, as always, he is a wealth of ideas and knowledge, and that was just a very valuable sit down. And I appreciate him very much for that. Then finally, one of my former coach, business and life coach, gentleman named Rich Taffel. Rich is a multi-threat, but two of his main focuses these days are, one, he is the pastor of the Church of the Holy City in Washington, D.C., but he is also the lead advisor at Rafa Social Capital Advisors, also in the Washington, D.C. area. And Rich, like I said, was my coach for a number of years. I talk about him in the book Business is Art. And earlier this year, when Rich needed some assistance in putting business plans together in order to secure a $250,000 loan to implement, build up, and launch a spiritual entrepreneur center at his church. I helped him out. We used Plan Canvas, put the plans together, and lo and behold, he got the loan. And so now he's just kind of in that startup phase. But that was it was a great experience to provide something back to him, because I felt like he's given me so much in my life, and I had an opportunity to help him with something that bore some fruit. And now he's working on that right now. I just can't say enough about the guy. He's just been a tremendous blessing in my life.
Wonderful. I think it's important. It's easy, and I see this a lot, sadly, with influencers and others who are content distributors, content creators, who do it in an intentional way, the way that you or others do. I'm not talking about, I write something on Twitter 2 or 3 times a week. I send out a couple tweets. That's not what I mean. I mean, like, YouTube creators, podcasters, those kinds of people. There's a lot of them that are really good about it. And those are the people that have an audience who, finds, I think, the most value. Yep. Because it's a two-way street on all fronts. Both for guests, for the host, and for those listening, and even for those of us who are typically behind the scenes, who are part of the production end of things. Yep. There's a lot of pieces that come together to make it work, and we all benefit in unique ways. And it's important to take time, not every episode, but it's important to make time to thank those people.
Yep. And speaking of making time, let's wrap that all up by saying this, that all of the podcasts on the TrueChat network really pursue a common goal. And TrueChat's mission is to educate people by providing honest, open, and respectful conversations. And if you have any ethical concerns with today's episode, please email ethics@truechat.org. Again, that's ethics@truechat.org. So let's get back to it here, Justin. We're talking about how to stay true and provide value, especially during this holiday season. So we're referencing the latest blog post, the December 2018 blog post at the plancanvas.net website. We've talked about the first of 3 major pieces to keep in mind with your messaging, and that's express gratitude. And we just talked about some of the people that the Plan Canvas team specifically is expressing gratitude toward, and more importantly, why. So, perhaps more importantly, I don't know. So the next really big piece of this blog post is staying loyal to the brand. So it's a great message. Hey, don't go out there creating your holiday messages, trying to get cute or so different that you really are not staying loyal to your brand. So this might be actually a good place. You said you had some questions, Justin, that you'd like to ask. So this would be a good place to just fire away.
Well, while you were going through some people, I was listening, but I also took time. So the story for people that don't know it, the quick recap is that, the podcast here, Business is Art, is in part, at least originally, it was based on the book Business is Art by Jon Umstead, the one and only. So that's kind of how it started. And Plan Canvas, and correct me if I'm wrong chronologically here, but that was not, in any way a public facing project at the time.
Right.
All it was is Business is Art. That was, not that Plan Canvas wasn't perhaps in the plans, but it wasn't on the canvas, so to speak. But okay. I'm going to stop with the puns. We'll leave those to John.
Yeah, but we were actually referring to it as the BIA software back in those days.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, the BIA. Yeah. But the business plan that TrueChat has been operating on and that we've used for the past few years since John made the connection with us is, I believe, what served as a starting point for the basis of what the Plan Canvas software hopes to achieve at least in respects to the planning aspect. I know we used it briefly in its very early iterations, long before the website and so forth had arrived at where they are now. But I was wondering, Jon, as you were going through this, we're getting ready to head into a new year, and this is the time of year when I do what I know I'm supposed to do, which is go back and look at the business plan and see, what should be changed, what needs to be updated, what still makes sense. So say I want to get started on Plan Canvas.
Mm-hmm.
What option do I choose? What's involved in getting started, and what can I expect? I mean, I'm just kind of curious, for people listening, if they want to start using it, who is the right person to go try to use this thing, and what are they going to get from it?
Yeah. It's funny. I just had that conversation this morning with someone. It's not an easy answer, and I know it's supposed to be. And in my mind it is, but I still to this day have a little bit of a hard time articulating it. So let me give it a shot by telling you a little bit of the history. So when Plan Canvas was originally envisioned, it, again, was based on the book, Business is Art. I wrote the book based on my experience being hired to run a company and grow it. Actually, the initial order of business was to avoid a turnaround situation because it was flat, wasn't growing, and in some cases was just beginning to go backwards. So when I was brought in to run this business, it was about $21 million in annual revenue and was pretty stagnant. Again, I wanted to avoid a turnaround situation, but I also really wanted to grow it. So we put together plans for doing that, and we ended up being very successful and ended up growing it by over 400% and profitably. And that was a fantastic experience. But that was the mindset that I had when I sat down to write the book. I had just had this experience of running a business that already existed that was just stuck and just needed to do better. Right. So that was where I was coming from with the book and where I was coming from with the software. And still to this day, this whole set of tools and resources that we've tried to make available, or that we have made available, are for that audience. Those business owners or operations managers or directors or COOs that are responsible for a set of business that exists and they want to make it better. But along the journey, people started looking at Plan Canvas particularly and said, wow, a startup could use this to figure out, A, should they start up or not? B, how do they start up? And C, how do they get beyond startup? And that was never in my mind at all when I sat down to write the book or when we sat down to lay out the requirements for Plan Canvas. Just wasn't in my mind. It just so happened that they were right. And they're like, yeah, duh, of course. So that's why I struggle a little bit, because people often ask, well, is this for a startup or for existing? And I hate it when people say, oh, it is for anybody. That's not true. Nothing is for everybody, right?
Right.
But in this particular case, it is for either. It's for startup and small, and it's for medium-sized, already existing businesses that want to do better and get more organized. So it's not an easy answer for someone like me who has a hard time with marketing messaging.
So somebody wants to get started and try things out. They want to, the best way, because TrueChat's obviously an online company, so we use all kinds of things. And we recently went through choosing a new hosting provider, which for those of you that don't know anything about podcasts, it's basically just referring to where your podcasts are actually housed. And in doing so, I tried out several different things to kind of figure out which one was the best fit, in terms of what was going to work for the network. How is that going to play? So we go to the Plan Canvas, website, plancanvas.net, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we choose the situation that is, most relevant to us.
Yeah.
And then it looks like I just have to fill out things like my name, business.
Yeah.
And then choose a plan.
Right. Now how I would answer your question specifically would be different next month than it is this month.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that typically what I would say is, you go to the website, go to the main page, and there's 8 options. Which of these describe you best? Freelancer, startup, small business, et cetera. Pick the one that fits you best, and you get to a page that hopefully speaks to you and where you are in your journey. And if you want to subscribe to the software, you click that button and you can go, it will take you actually to a registration page where you can register for the software. And it's pretty inexpensive for that person or that business company that goes out and just subscribes to it. No other services. You're just using the software. It's $15 a month. Easy peasy. Put in a credit card. You're off to the races. And all we ask is a minimum 3-month commitment. And from there, you can do a monthly or you can do an annual, what have you. No services around that. You're just using the software.
Right.
There are other options if you want some consulting services around it. Those options are out there as well.
Like if people are listening and they decide I need Jon Umstead, then there's those options too.
There are.
Where they can get access to
Yeah.
The man behind the podcast.
Yeah. And that's more of a contact, sure. Even on the website, it's like, hey, send us some information, send us an email or whatever, fill out our contact page and tell us what you're after. There's a conversation that's going to need to be had before we can ever quote things to quote prices.
Yeah.
And we have some things that are packaged. If you are just looking for, man, I've got to have, a strategy and a business plan pronto. I need it. Boom, boom, boom. Quick. Oh, we've got a price tag for that. And it's just, if you want it quick, here's what you're going to get.
Right.
So, but, that stuff's out there. But the reason I'm saying my answer is different today, and for the rest of this month, for the rest of December of 2018, again, kind of keeping in line with staying loyal to the brand. We're all about, we want to help people do better. But the third part of the blog post is be of value. So the value that we are offering is you're going to have to go to the blog post and fill out a form or hit the info@plancanvas.net, hyperlink and send us some information. But what we're offering is 3 months of free use of the software and an unspecified, undefined, free limited engagement consulting service. The reason I'm leaving that undefined is because needs are going to be different depending on who's responding, right? So I didn't want to just say it's this and that's all it is, because situations will vary. So that's the big value that we're offering. Go out to the blog post and respond. Get a 3-month free subscription to Plan Canvas. If you like it and you're finding value in it, convert over to a paying customer. If you don't, just let it expire. No harm, no foul. But take advantage as well of some free consulting services that we're going to offer. What exactly that is, again, I can't say because I don't know the situation yet. I also don't know if I'm going to get 0 respondents or 1,000. Right? So that's going to change the playing field as well, just because of the amount of time in the day.
Supply and demand.
Exactly. Yeah.
If 1,000 people all say they want 10 hours of Jon's time, he's going to be busy for a couple of years, probably.
Exactly. So there it is. We really want to help people do better. We're serious about that mission. And we want you to use our software. We want to teach you how to use it. And we want to give you a little bit of help along the way.
Well, I just completed the form.
All right. We got 1 on the board.
That's right. Real-time updates.
Good. Yeah. So the reason that form is important is because we will go in and set the account up. Whereas normally if you were just coming through the website and subscribing on your own, you'd have to supply a credit card to get it fired up.
Right.
Yeah. So
and go through the automated system thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't say this on the blog post. I probably should, but I definitely will say it here. The purpose of having you send that information is not so we can build our email list and blast you with spam. I hate it. And I won't do it. So, don't worry about that.
Okay. I like that. I appreciate that. Microsoft introduced their whole, Outlook that has the focused inbox and the other inbox.
Yeah.
I don't even click on the other one anymore because it filters out most of that stuff because it's all the things I never clicked on, the spam filter doesn't pick up because I did subscribe to them, accidentally somehow. And they just keep coming.
Yeah.
I could probably spend a week just unsubscribing from email lists that I don't even know how I got on,
Well, that's what really irks me is, I'm the same way. I'm like, why am I getting that? To unsubscribe to this. Oh, I never subscribed.
Right.
I know there are rules out there that are supposed to keep that from happening, but it sure happens. So yeah, but not from us. That won't happen.
Excellent.
And so that's really everything I wanted to cover in review of this blog post. Again, express gratitude, stay loyal to the brand, be of value. I thought those were really great points that article at Inc. was making. That article, again, is how to stand out with your holiday messaging. And the blog post at Plan Canvas that references it is entitled How to Stay True and Be of Value. So, anything else that you'd like to cover while we are here?
I don't think so. I'm excited to get in. Like I said, I haven't seen the inside of Plan Canvas since the very, very early days. So I know that it's very different from then.
Dramatically changed.
Yes. So I'm excited to see it. Maybe I'm sure in a few weeks at some point I'll be on again and I'll let everybody know what a wonderful program I'm sure that it is.
We'll talk about your experience. Hey, you got to be honest, though. You got to be honest.
Well, that's right.
Folks, you can listen to TrueChat podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and anywhere fine podcasts are found. For Business is Art on TrueChat, I'm Jon Umstead.
And I'm Justin T. Weller.
Justin, thanks again for sitting in. Thank you all very much for tuning in. And go out to the website. Look, if you're looking for a little bit of help, hey, here's a free way to get started. So please do so. We'll see you next time on Business is Art. Be the change.